Welcome to Line by Line. Today, Gilad is back as a guest, and he picked a very good song, which I already analyzed before with Roger remarks. Please check it out in the link below. So, Gilad, why did you pick that song?
So Sound of Silence is a song that I've always loved. I love a lot of Paul Simon and Garfunkel songs. And this one has that property that really good art has, that it feels really personal. And it can feel really personal to millions of people, but it still feels like really personal to you when you hear it.
Relatable, in a way. There is something universal about the melody and the lyrics, but the lyrics especially. Would you do me the honors and read the first stanza? We'll talk about it.
Yeah. I think we can even separate it a bit more if you want. I think we can just start with "Hello, darkness, my old friend." What do you think about that line? What is it talking about? What is the meaning of that phrase?
I thought of the darkness never as my friend, in a way. I always wanted to change that line, and so each time I heard people interpret it differently, it spoke to me, in a way.
So to me, it rings with the sort of experiences of existential dread. And there's something about it that is deep and unrelenting, but also familiar. Right? It's an old friend, but it's darkness. And the thing that I feel about it, which I think runs through the entire song, is that it's that sort of relation that the speaker has with darkness that pushes him towards living. Right? When you look at the abyss and our finitude, death, all of the terrible things that could happen, and it kind of pushes you to go like, I really need to live. I can't just go through the day. I really need to live to the fullest.
When you talk about the abyss and its analogy to the darkness, a poem stood out to me that I wrote in the past, where I would argue that abyss is my friend. Again, so
The abyss is definitely dark,
it is. So if I would gaze into abyss, we will become a light. It would reciprocate my gaze with its dark, deep, dreamy eyes. Yeah, dark, deep, dreamy eyes. What should I do, my dear beast? Please help me to survive. Don't follow me, my dear girl. Go to the world, alive, alive, alive.
In your poem as well, it sounds like there's that push from that darkness that tells you to live, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly like Gilad. So I try not to think about it. Each time I think about the darkness, I don't think of darkness as my own friend, but yet I wrote a poem making abyss sort of this absolutely caring parental figure in a way, who would push me out of the darkness to be alive. But I always thought abyss rejected me as a human being. It was like, nope, you're not belonging into the darkness. Go to the world. There you go.
It's interesting because I think there's a sense in which like the abyss is rejecting us for now. And I think that's part of what makes it our friend, right? That's part of what makes the darkness our friend, because we don't belong in the darkness, but we know it's there. And like that, those visits, right? They kind of led us something. I think we can maybe talk about the whole first stanza. So in that regard, so it goes, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence." I feel like when you think about the setting, when you think, "Hello, darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again," you can almost imagine the scene, right? When you have the person in this sort of intimate one-on-one dialogue with a friend, but that friend is darkness. So, like, there's the entirely dark environment, and still the scene is not like man alone, but in sort of an intimate, friendly conversation. So yeah, I found that interesting. And then he goes on to the reason, right? Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. So to me, that already sets the tone for the song. And I think the song, I mean, Paul Simon also said that directly. And it's a bit of a broad term, but it talks about alienation, right? It talks about this sense, to me, what that means is that sense of feeling that something is off, feeling the disconnection between you and the world. Um, Feeling like the way you are in the world is somehow unfitting. Something needs to change.
The feeling of alienation in the world, in the darkness. Like in the darkness, we don't see other people. In the darkness, we are alone, in a way. And also in the darkness, we are lost. And when that realization is creeping in, and in the darkness, it's really easy. Because during the light, when you have all this distraction and visual stimuli, yeah, your mind is occupied. It's elsewhere. It's out of your own head. Yeah.
But I think there's something even more to it than that, because in the darkness, you feel the contrast, right? Like there's something about it that tells you, like, how to phrase it. When you go through life sort of automatically, you don't think about the darkness. You don't think about the nothingness around us. You don't think about death. And in a way, you're in this half light, right? Like there's something about it that's sort of there. And to me, right, one of the main ways in which this song is so touching is that it gives that contrast. All of the song is about darkness and light to the extreme, sound and silence, the extreme, and how they somehow work together, right? How our existence is that paradoxical binding of those things, that sound of silence.
It's a contrast, but on one hand, but I see more, not really a contrast, but nuance, in a way that even silence has a sound. It's It's really quiet, it's faint, and you have to pay attention to the detail to notice it in a way.
So I get what you're saying, but like there's a way in which that is still not silence, right? Like there's something about that that is still not quite the sound of silence. Like those faint sounds, the more paying attention. It's not yet silence. It's very close, not yet quite like the depths of it. So I've been thinking about the last part of that stanza. The vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. And what I think about is exactly that automatic way in which you're going through your days. And I think throughout the song, when he's talking about sound of silence, he's talking about sort of being a zombie in your daily life, right? Like alive but not alive. That's what I think is the sound of silence that he's referring to. That even like you have that state you're already in, you're alienated, you don't feel connected to yourself, you don't feel connected to the world, but there's that vision. Now vision is sight. Sight is about light, right? But the vision is somewhere there within the sound of silence. So even when you're living that way, there was a line that I wrote down some time ago. It's like how long can you walk around not being alive before you realize it? Right? People can sometimes spend years, not really living, not really engaging with the world, sort of being, indifferent, apathetic, automatic. That's what I think is the sound of silence. What do you think about that?
Going with the flow.
Well, flow is a bit too positive, I think, for that connotation to me.
What does it mean to be alive? I think it's different for different people. For me, to be alive, it's a connection between thought, action, and materialization of your ideas. So you have a thought,
You ground
you
that a
do
bit?
things, and then you create stuff.
That sounds a bit, I don't know, a bit philosophical to me. Could you ground that a bit and what that means in experience or something? Because I'm not sure I understand.
So being alive is a participation in immediate surroundings. So you have your friends, you have your neighbors, you have your, I don't know, daily challenges. And if you go and do it with with bare minimum, you wake up and you hate it. And you just you have to do whatever it takes to get to the point where you don't interact with people, where you just rest and be in that state of non-existence. So this is sound of silence. It like massive inertness, where you are not you're not being somebody who is affecting your surrounding in a positive way. You're just going with it. Whatever is bare minimum.
I think it's similar to my perception of it, which is a sort of sense of a shallow experience, right? When you go about and you don't really notice the taste of the food you eat, you don't really notice the interactions you have with people, the specifics of the conversations. You're going through the motions, right? That's one way to describe it. You're doing enough to stay alive, like to survive, to not die, but you're not living in a positive way. You're not sort of cherishing life.
Shallow experience. Well, I remember a story. Like I was visiting my mom in Ukraine, and it's like a city in the south of Ukraine before the war. It was a peaceful city, and so I took a public transportation, a bus, from the city to the village where my mom has a house. And I get on a bus and I try to blend in with the locals because I feel different in a way. And then at some bus stop, a guy enters and he wears a fur coat in winter with sunglasses, aviator sunglasses and the fur coat. And he has like this insane smile on his face, and he goes in the bus that goes to a village. This means it's like village bus with a lot of babushkas, and like, you know, and he comes in and he's just there smiling, realizing that he is looking like a star in there. I'm just like me trying to blend in, and he's like living to his full potential. I don't know how to call it. And he comes, and in a weird way, he transferred the entire bus. Like everybody, including the driver, were just immediately adjusted. So the drunk guys at the back stopped swearing, and they became weirdly polite, just not to like offend this movie star that just entered. And that guy was like not even like, you don't know him. He just looks like a movie star. He isn't. And he's just there. And at that moment, I look at him, and I think I was like 19 at that time. And I'm looking at him and thinking, he's alive. Like while everybody else just, you know, keeping alive or doing whatever they can to stay alive, but he is alive. Like that was my thought. I don't know, it's like, I'm not promoting acting like that, but it's just the weird memory that you sparked at the moment.
In restless dreams, I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence.
The cobblestone is really painful when you fall on it. Realizing it while walking in the darkness, knowing that it's this stone under your feet, you have to be very careful not to fall down.
Interesting. To me, that those first lines interesting. So first, in restless dreams, I walked alone. And well, in restless dreams, I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. So if you've watched Vanilla Sky, there's the famous opening scene where Tom Cruise is just getting up, and he gets out of the house and there's no one, and he gets out to the main square, and like it's Times Square, like somewhere extremely central, and there is no one, right? That's the sort of dream. You're walking in a street, it's all civilization, right? There's roads, there's cobblestone paths, but you're alone. And there's something about it that's just such a vivid image of alienation. I think especially in Vanilla Sky, like seeing that visually, that dread, right? That you're actually completely alone in this entire world, and if it were the wilderness, you wouldn't feel that, right? Like there's something about civilization without people that brings out that unbearable dread. To me, the cobblestone was kind of the sign that civilization, modernity is playing a part in that, in this play.
Even though the world is civilized, you're still alone.
I think it's more than that. It's the sort of alienation that comes with that. There's the sense that you're unhomed, right? Because it's not nature. You come from nature, and you don't really belong to civilization. You belong to people. You belong to nature. Civilization makes so many things possible, but it also makes you feel that you don't belong.
Why?
You probably have that feeling, right? You had that feeling when you go into nature and you have this beautiful vista, you have a view of an entire, yeah, lush green area, and you just feel this, how that sort of, you breathe that in, and it makes you feel better. I think there were even researches to show that that's something that makes you feel good. And when you have that, with the view of a city, that doesn't really do the same thing. And you could stand on a building and look at a city, and you don't get the same feeling and the same recharging sense that you do when you're in nature, because we have this contrast within us, right? We are not. We come from nature for sure, and we have to acknowledge that. But we also, our world is also different, right? We have civilization, we have our cities, and we don't want to go back to live, like hunter-gatherers in nature. And that contrast is making us feel unhomed.
Yeah, there is something in that.
But I think this song actually goes further, which is this stanza. The next lines have two lights that appear. And the first is the street lamp, right? And then there's the neon sign. So in restless dreams, I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turn my collar to the cold and damp. So the lamp is the sort of comforting light, the light that lets you sort of stay in your comfort zone without like drastically changing your life. And you're still trying to sort of protect yourself, in this case from the elements, right? You can imagine this person getting to the street lamp, and there's this wind, the cold and damp, and you're just trying to get through the days still, right? He's in this state, feeling alone, walking in this civilization, feeling at home. And then when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of the neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. That's an enlightenment myth, right? There's a bright light, and you can't be the same anymore. But instead of the sun, right, it should be nature. But instead of the sun, it's a neon sign, right? Like that that to me is a brilliant move, and it has so much depth within this song that the thing that gives you enlightenment is not nature, it's man-made. It's even like a sign of alienation, right? A symbol, I'm trying to say, right? A neon sign. How much more artificial can you have? Like this really bright light now piercing through the darkness into your heart, and it's not the sun.
I'm thinking about those babushkas in the past, staying in their own sound of silence, and then this guy comes with a smile in a fur coat.
Yeah.
He's like this neon light piercing their sound of silence.
Right? because it is like there's the neon sign of like it's the appearance, right? It's not the truth. It's not like the transcendent. It's not God. It's a neon sign.
Yeah.
But something about it, yeah. But something about it touches the depths of you, right? It touches the sound of silence. And then the next stanza, and in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share. No one dared disturb the sound of silence.
Wow. Yeah, so to your analogy that the sound of silence is like the masses of zombified people, and then there are also actually all of them on the inside, they have their own lives, their own light, and they write their own songs. Nobody will hear them, and nobody dares to stand out of the crowd.
So I think there's something in it like that, but there's also, right? Why doesn't anyone dare disturb the sound of silence? To me, it really does have a cost. And I think it's why the song starts with "Hello, darkness, my old friend." The thing is, when you disturb the sound of silence, you're bringing up a lot. And being alive, like really being alive, not just going through the motions, it's not just fun. It's not just beautiful. It's also painful and sad and everything, right? And the sound of silence is okay. Maybe let's not disturb it, right? Maybe we should stay with just okay. And I think without the darkness, without like that understanding, that deep dread that we really are finite, we don't have all the time in the world. If we don't live now, if we don't really speak with each other, if we don't really listen to what's around us, then we won't get another chance.
No one dared disturb the sound of silence.
And again, I think it's interesting that where does the speaker get this enlightenment about the state of humanity? Gets it from the light of the neon sign, right? We built that. but it's also a reflection of us. And we are also a reflection of what is, a reflection of our nature. Like, as much as civilization seems detached from nature, and it removes us and it alienates us, when you look into that artificial light, right, it still has that power to enlighten us, to see what really is.
Even the Joker can give insight.
Yeah.
People writing songs. People hearing without listening. Like, that was weird to me. Like, how is that? Do they hear their internal worlds without listening to the external world?
I usually saw it a bit differently, but more on the vein of the rest of the song, which is the sort of blah 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 talking, or like music to pass the time. Right? There's a famous experiment where they took a world-class violinist, and they put him to play just outside the subway to see whether anyone stops and listens to this beautiful, beautiful violin music, and only the kids stopped. It was interesting, like the little kids were just like enthralled. But the parents are just pulling them along, like they didn't even notice. And to me, right, it's not that their ears aren't, getting the sound, but they're not listening. They're going through their day, and they don't listen to what music that violinist is playing and how beautiful it is.
The zombie state again.
Yeah.
Why does nobody dare to disturb the sound of silence? Why is that?
Why do you think?
Um, like, again, coming back to me in a bus, trying to blend in. And blending in, not asking for people's attention or gaze, not to stand out, not to disturb whatever is, to conform. Basically, you conform to the rule of the bus. So those babushkas and those drunk people at the back of the bus had been doing that every day, from city to the village, from city to the village. And I'm coming, okay, here is the rules. I have to conform. I have to be like the rest. I cannot stand out. Like, I'm in the realm of no one dared. So I don't want to disturb the sound of silence. But when the guy enters, definitely he's the artificial light. It's shallow in a way, but it's enough to pierce it. His appearance affected the bus, so the bus changed. Like, the people stopped swearing. Like, I actually noticed, like, oh my god, those people have been swearing heavily, and now they're like, oh, please, may I offer you the seat, sir? Oh, like, you probably, like, they got really weirdly artificially civilized. And I was shocked by that. Like, I literally, I could not believe that one appearance can have this influence. And yet, I would not dare to do the same thing. And that idea, what makes a person dare and what makes somebody not?
I think it's scary to live, to really live, think it's scary. That's why you don't dare, because you're frightened. So I'll read the next stanza. Fools, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence.
Because people hearing without listening.
I think it's a lot of things. It's a really beautiful stanza. First of all, silence like a cancer grows, right? Like that in itself is carrying a lot.
Yeah, that is applicable to other things.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like that bus story that you have, right? You get in and you have that sense, like you're saying, if everyone's doing this, then I should too. And that starts spreading. And I think, it can go from the personal to the to the community and to the social at large very quickly. And I think that's the cancer analogy. And I think he wants to sort of counter it, right? He wants to say, like, let's get out of this zombie state. Let's, bring ourselves to something better. And I mean, definitely, like the framing is right, the Enlightenment and then the prophet, right? Like now he's the Old Testament prophet who is preaching, everyone how they're living in sin. Fools, you do not know. And I think, in a way, there is a bit of self-irony in there. Because there's something a bit juvenile, right? You've walked out into the street, you saw this neon light and gave you this vision, and now, everyone else is a fool, and you must teach them, and you must reach them, right? And to me, I don't know, that's something that I sort of feel is so over the top in the way it's written in the song. Like it's a real prophet there, but there's a naivety to it, right? Like it's kind of like the Old Testament prophets, right? They say what is, but there's nothing like convincing about it. Like it's doomed to fail. The Old Testament prophets are never going to get a sense of like everyone like, oh damn it, we were really off the path. We should just change our ways. Like they always say it, and everything stays the same.
Well, it's a path of least resistance. People will choose the easiest way And the easiest way is the way that others have walked on. And so, like mirror reflecting another mirror, like they keep on spreading that reflection. And then there is somebody who says, who is alone, like there is a lot of mirrors who had been reflecting each other for a while, and then comes a new light person who is like, wants to redirect all those reflections. And that's, first of all, it's a new path that people, all of those mirrors did not walk on. All of those people, they aren't used to it. And the other thing, he's alone in there. It reminds me of a different story. I have received documents, I think it's in 2015, so 8 years ago, I have received documents from building administration stating this is a legal document, you need to sign it. We have gathered local residents from your building, and everybody gathered universally decided to sell a plot of land for this amount. It's like ridiculously low amount, and build an adjacent house to your house. And I'm reading that, and I'm shocked. It's like 100 residents in the building, and I'm like, okay, first of all, there are details missing. How many residents had been at that meeting? Because I am a resident, I never heard of a meeting taking place. So I'm responding to that email and asking, I directed it to 100 residents of the building, and I'm asking, please, before I sign, answer me when the meeting took place, how many people were there, and so on. And I was alone. I stood out, like the building was expecting little resistance, or that people would be divided, let's say, nobody would know what to do, and the plot of land belonging to the garden of the building would be sold, and some weird construction will be attached. And but what happened was one more person reflected me and my view. So I got two mirrors reflecting each other, and that person started making noise. So the two of us started making noise back and forth, and the third one joined in, and the three of us, and then it spread, and we led to complete dismissal of 5 building administrator people. And I think as a consequence, the building won a lot of money from the construction for like massive violation and using the plot of land without our knowledge for a long time, like something like that. So this happened, but when I was alone, basically throwing stones into the unknown, for a while nobody would reflect me, and there I felt the sound of silence. Basically, people are all zombified, they don't hear me. It's something wrong is happening here. So I'm thinking about that idea that whatever he spoke, nobody else reflected. That's the thing. He was alone, as he said at the beginning. If there would be one more person doing with him, and they would basically double reflection, they would actually get more.
So I think the last lines of the stanza are also really beautiful, both in the lyrics and the music. First of all, you have this, but my words like silent raindrops fell, and then you have the music like doo-doo-doo. And the thing is, every time before that, there would be more words there, right? Like you were expecting, no one dared, right? In the previous stanza, you had no one dared disturb the sounds of silence on that exact part of of the musical structure. But in there, you have my words like silent raindrops fell, and then you can hear them fall, right? Like you don't hear more words. You hear the like this only this musical bit. And echoed in the wells of silence, which is such a beautiful image, right? Because you have it's so far detached. You have it's not that they're nothing, but it's like raindrops, but not heavy rain, like silent raindrops falling into a well, so it's very deep, and then echoing in that well, so they're getting distorted through all of that distance. And it's like it's not that they're gone, but it's so far detached, right? You can just feel that distance.
Each person is a well. There are like thousands of wells, but all of them echo.
And this is the first time that he uses echo, because there's sound, there's silence, and now there's echo. And an echo is interesting in that context because it's not his words, it's not like the original sound, it's a faint copy of it, right? It's that distance, it's that removal.
It's a mirror, but a distorted mirror that you kind of lose it in a way.
Yeah. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. And the sign said, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds of silence. So to me, that's a very optimistic stanza. That might be an unorthodox reading, but that's how I see it.
And so there is an artificial shallow light that breaks the sound of silence. And people will worship their own creation in a way.
It's more than that. Like they worship that creation. It's clearly, the golden calf or any other myth, right? Like it's not the sun, but you bow and pray to it, and it's like their god. But even that god, right? Like even that neon sign is flashing that warning, right? Like there's the sense that even within, let's say, Plato's cave, there's a way to realize that you have to reorient yourself, to stop looking at the shadows dancing at the walls, right? Like there's that sense in that whole stanza that it's not hopeless, right? Like there's an arrow pointing to where the light, the real light is, where life really is. And what it's saying, which I think is also real beautiful, is that the place you should look are not the places where it's neat, tidy, pleasant, and beautiful, but where it's, dirty and uncomfortable, and the places you want to avoid.
Subway walls?
Yeah, the subway is the things written on the subway walls are not the sort of pleasant things, the very well processed products, neither in the tenement halls. But that's what the sign is saying, right? Like the neon sign is pointing away from itself. What is like the furthest thing from the neon signs, in the city? It's the graffiti on the wall, right? That's the least engineered part. And saying like, go back to that. That's what this light is showing you. Like you have, even within all of this distance, all of this separation between you and what's real, there's a way to get more real, more reality.
I'm thinking about the outliers who write on the subway walls. Those are people who gave up, in a way, people who do not conform, people who do not live by the rules, in a way as well. Punks. Again, like there is some insight that the Joker can give.
And I think there's the last part, in addition to that, and whispered in the sounds, now plural for the first time, of silence. Now, whispering also didn't appear until now, which is also interesting, right? Why? What do you think the words of the prophets are whispered?
The prophets that people created?
What do you think?
Like the neon light that people pray to, and it's pointing to the dirty walls of subway and the things written there. And I don't want to bring relevance realization. The things that are whispered to you. It's like the things that are written in the subway wall.
I think the things that are whispered are the things that you only notice if you listen. Right? The things that are shouted, you're gonna hear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just like compare that to the previous stanza, where he's shouting basically at people. Right? Fools that you do not know, all of that part. But then it ends with, the words that are whispered in the sounds of silence. So to me, that's sort of what this is. Because we're not talking about what the song is shouting at us, but we're trying to really understand what it's whispering to us.
Getting out of the zombie state.
Yeah. So to me, the whole song, if we relate it to the allegory of the cave or the parable of the cave, Plato's cave, the whole song is about that first step where you're, looking at the shadows, and that first step where you just turn around, like only that part. You're still in the cave. There is no sun. The best you get is a neon light, right? It's still not the sun, but it's that part when you go like, these are just appearances, and I want to reorient myself. I don't know where it's going, but I want to reorient myself. And even considering the start with the darkness, right? That's what you're headed towards. When you're like going up the cave, right? The first thing is you have the fire that's setting all the shadows. You have to leave that behind you and go towards the darkness in order to climb out into the light.
People who walked the darkness already, who faced it, and at some point they lose that fear. They lose that fear. They aren't scared to shout. They aren't scared to stand out of the crowd. In a way, I don't think it's naive even anymore. I actually think the people who faced the darkness, that sentiment, fools, you don't get it. I have seen the darkness. You're heading there. Like, start living, start doing, like, break the reality. It's like Neo in Matrix, basically. He breaks the Matrix in a way.
Yeah, the Matrix is definitely, very much similar imagery to this song.
Oh, yeah. The follow the white rabbit sort of thing.
Yeah.
The little signs.
The idea that you can break out of that simulation, like you're stuck in this world of neon lights, but you can break out. That's what the song ends. That's what the Matrix is saying. That's what Plato's parable is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just convincing you that, that's possible, that reorientation, that you don't have to be just, bound to a chair and forced to look at the images played in front of you.
So the guy on a bus with the fur coat and sunglasses in winter, he had been to the other side, let's say. He had been to the darkness, and he doesn't care anymore. So he enters the bus and he can actually like pierce through it, through reality. He broke the matrix. I haven't faced the darkness, so I'm like conforming.
Yeah, I think it's a good distinction that you're saying. Like, it's kind of facing the darkness. He's maybe, I don't know the guy, but maybe he's choosing to reorient himself away from, just sort of
Conformity.
getting through the days. But I think it's also, right, really not really well put by the song and by your story, that this is not the real thing. Like, it's still shallow. He really cares about appearance. He really wants to look like a rock star. He's not like the image of the sage, right? Like, but there's something about it, even within that superficiality, even, that you can find that spark. You can find that, that's something attractive about it that helps you to realize, I actually have to seek out what's more real. And like, how beautiful is that? Just that part, not the journey, not the cave, not just that realization part, that first step. I think that's what this song is talking about. Just that step.
Wow. Without thinking.
Thank you.
I would like to thank my today's sponsor, Free Time.
That's a cat.
Free Time Cat. EM made it when she had free time.
All right.
People, Happy New Year, and see you in the next
Happy
line
New
by
Year.
line. So, Gilad, why did you pick that song?
It's a song that's been on my mind for a long time, since the last line by line we did. And there's something about it that has a lot of layers. On one hand, it has a very kind of simple way, and it touches very sharply. And at the same time, when you go into it, it has a lot more layers, and I find it really speaks to things that I feel and experience many times. So I feel it's kind of personal. For instance, my first line, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." I know that it feels very personal to a lot of people, but that's a really strong aspect of it. To me, it feels like, yeah, I know what he's talking about when he says, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." One thing, real quick, in your background, there is the painting, but there's also the person with the 3D goggles. That's weird, and it's distracting me.
That's me. Okay, let me remove it. There you go. Is it better? I'm sorry. Okay, how about that one? That one is darkness.
Yeah, this one works better, less distracting, because otherwise I would just look at that and there's the painting, and never mind. We can continue.
No, we cannot continue to reshoot and chill out.
All
There's
right.
the painting change. Rachel Bloom, she wrote an interpretation for that song, and she like took it a step further. She said, "Darkness, her boyfriend. Hello, darkness, my boyfriend. And your name is Tyler."